That morning, nobody knew the ship was designed to sink. August 19th, 1814. The USS Constitution cut through Chesapeake Bay waters that reflected a sky dark with British invasion fleet smoke. 6 sailors from the United States Navy received orders that bore no official Navy Department seal, orders to investigate reports of British naval supplies hidden in American shipyards, orders that came with tools that didn't match regulation equipment and charts that showed harbors not marked on any official naval maps. Sailing toward Baltimore through waters that had been secured by American naval forces, carrying instruments that felt unfamiliar in experienced hands, toward coordinates that appeared on no Admiralty documentation, approved by Secretary of the Navy William Jones. The mission briefing had lasted exactly 12 minutes. Locate suspected British ship repair facilities operating behind American lines. Secure enemy naval equipment for analysis. Test captured British naval supplies against American fleet standards. Standard naval intelligence operations for a nation fighting for its maritime independence against the world's most powerful navy. Except nothing about this mission was standard. Starting with the fact that their target coordinates were in Baltimore Harbor, which had been under American naval control since the war began, not recently captured British positions. Boatswain's mate first class Patrick Henry O'Malley checked his compass and studied the harbor approaches ahead. Irish immigrant from Boston, who had joined the Navy to fight British maritime tyranny and establish American naval independence. Expert in ship construction and naval gunnery, from years sailing American merchant vessels, had volunteered for this assignment because he believed the intelligence reports about British naval operations, because he trusted his officers to provide accurate information about enemy activities, because he thought classified missions were classified to protect American naval security, not to hide activities that would disgrace people who had never stood watch or faced British cannon fire. Gunner's mate, second class Antonio Silva, carried the naval analysis equipment that had been modified with measuring devices he didn't recognize. Portuguese immigrant from Massachusetts, who spoke fluent English and understood maritime engineering, had enlisted to fight British naval supremacy after witnessing Royal Navy impress American sailors from merchant vessels, wanted to establish American control of American waters, and prove that Republican naval forces could defeat monarchist fleets, had no idea that defeating British naval power sometimes required activities that were indistinguishable from the maritime exploitation they were fighting to prevent. That fighting naval tyranny sometimes meant discovering naval tyranny among those claiming to oppose it. The shipyard appeared through morning harbor mist like something that didn't belong in Republican America. Not the crude British naval facilities that characterize most Royal Navy logistics operations in hostile waters. This was sophisticated maritime infrastructure, modern shipbuilding facilities designed for constructing vessels of the line, dry docks that connected to American naval supply routes, rather than British fleet anchorages, and most disturbing of all, smokestacks that were producing naval construction materials. Despite reports that claimed all British shipbuilding in American waters had been eliminated by American naval supremacy. Seaman First Class Samuel Adams Prescott raised his spyglass and studied the facility. Farm boy from Maine, who had grown up around shipbuilding and understood vessel construction. Expert sailor, who could identify military vessels from civilian merchant ships. Natural lookout, who could distinguish enemy facilities from friendly installations. But nothing in his training had prepared him for what he was seeing through that spyglass. Buildings that were clearly designed for warship construction and naval armament production. Equipment that belonged in American naval yards, not British military shipyards. And workers moving between vessels who weren't wearing British naval uniforms, weren't wearing American naval uniforms, were wearing civilian clothes that looked distinctly American. Quartermaster Sergeant William Penn Jefferson carried the explosives that were supposed to destroy British naval stockpiles. Quaker convert from Pennsylvania, who had abandoned pacifism to fight for American maritime independence, had lost relatives to Royal Navy cannon fire during British raids on American ports, volunteered for dangerous missions because he believed eliminating British naval capabilities would end the war and preserve American shipping, because he trusted that American naval forces were fighting for maritime freedom and commercial independence, because he thought the explosives he carried would be used to eliminate vessels that threatened American commerce, not to destroy evidence of activities that American officials couldn't afford to acknowledge. The naval facility was operational, not abandoned by withdrawing British forces, not captured by advancing American naval squadrons, not destroyed by naval bombardment, that intelligence claimed had eliminated all Royal Navy construction capabilities in American waters, operational, and apparently building warships that required sophisticated equipment, skilled shipwrights, and ongoing naval logistics, activities that someone was willing to risk 6 American naval lives to investigate, or eliminate, or cover up. Seaman Second Class Thomas Jefferson Washington was the unit's specialist in naval architecture and maritime documentation. Virginia Waterman's son, who had joined the Navy to fight for American maritime sovereignty and Republican naval principles, expert in ship design and naval construction analysis, could examine vessel specifications and identify discrepancies in naval engineering, had joined this mission to ensure that captured British naval supplies were properly analyzed for American fleet improvements, had no idea that proper analysis sometimes revealed improper activities, that fighting for American maritime principles sometimes meant discovering Americans who were betraying those principles for commercial advantage. Coxswain Alexander Hamilton Martinez handled communications and maritime commerce analysis. Spanish immigrant from New York who had joined the Navy to prove his American naval loyalty. Expert in shipping operations and maritime finance, could operate naval signal equipment under combat conditions, could analyze commercial maritime records and identify suspicious shipping activities. But the records he was analyzing weren't British naval documents, were American commercial shipping ledgers, were maritime business communications discussing American shipbuilding activities at what was supposed to be a British naval facility. Seaman Third Class George Washington Brown tested the naval equipment that had been provided for the mission. Free black man from Maryland who had enlisted to fight for maritime freedom and prove his seamanship, expert in naval gunnery and ship maintenance, could identify defective naval equipment and faulty ship construction. But the equipment he was testing wasn't protecting American naval forces from British warships, was exposing American sailors to systematic sabotage that was designed to cause American naval vessels to fail during combat with British fleets. O'Malley signaled for his team to observe the shipbuilding facility from concealed positions. 20-year merchant marine veteran who had sailed American waters since before the war, had seen action against French privateers and Barbary corsairs, understood that naval warfare required difficult decisions and dangerous intelligence operations, but also understood that some activities crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed, that some orders required questioning, even when questioning orders could be considered mutiny against American naval authority, that some missions revealed truths that were more dangerous than British naval action. The shipbuilding facility contained vessels that didn't match any known British or captured American naval architecture, didn't match Royal Navy designs that American naval intelligence had documented, matched American naval construction patterns, matched warship building techniques, matched naval vessel specifications that were identical to ships that American yards constructed for the United States Navy, matched the kind of vessels that American shipbuilders produced under naval contracts with both American and British maritime authorities. Through spyglasses, The sailors could see shipwrights working on vessels wearing American maritime clothing and using American naval construction techniques, could see wagons arriving with materials that bore American naval contractor markings, could see finished warships being fitted with equipment that was designed for both American and British naval specifications, could see maritime equipment that was identical to systems used by American naval contractors and shipbuilders, could see evidence that proved this facility was American, not British. Silva intercepted signal communications that confirmed their worst suspicions, conversations in American accents between maritime personnel who were discussing vessel specifications, delivery schedules, and payment arrangements, not military communications about supporting British naval operations, commercial communications about warship construction, about shipbuilding operations that were producing inferior vessels for American naval forces while simultaneously constructing superior warships for British buyers, about activities that violated every principle of American maritime independence while generating substantial profits for American shipbuilders. Prescott discovered that the naval vessels being constructed contained structural defects that were deliberately engineered below naval combat specifications, hull timbers that were inadequately seasoned and would rot during extended voyages, cannon mounts that were improperly reinforced and would fail under sustained bombardment, rigging systems that would part when American naval vessels needed maximum speed during combat with British fleets, construction defects that weren't accidents or quality control failures, were systematic sabotage designed to ensure American naval defeat while maintaining plausible deniability for American shipbuilders who were profiting from both sides of the war. Jefferson used his naval architecture knowledge to examine the facility's construction methods, saw something that changed everything: shipbuilding equipment that was identical to machinery used in American naval yards, construction techniques that were standard in American warship production, quality control procedures that were being deliberately subverted to produce defective vessels for American naval forces while maintaining superior standards for warships destined for British naval service. Evidence that proved American shipbuilders were sabotaging American naval effectiveness while claiming to support American maritime independence. Washington realized that the American naval vessels they were supposed to be serving were being sunk by warships constructed in American shipyards by American workers under contracts with American companies who were being paid by the American government. Vessels that were designed to fail when American naval supremacy depended on their reliability, warships that were constructed to break under combat stress, ships that were systematically sabotaged to ensure British naval superiority, commercial betrayal that was generating profits while drowning American sailors. Martinez examined the commercial documentation and recognized business procedures that were identical to systems used by American shipping companies and maritime contractors, logistics that were designed for supplying both American and British naval forces from the same shipbuilding facilities, transportation networks that were moving superior warships to British fleets while delivering defective vessels to American naval squadrons, commercial operations that were prolonging the war to maximize profits from both governments. Brown analyzed the naval construction samples and identified systematic use of inferior materials that would reduce vessel effectiveness by approximately 50%, hull planking that had been treated with substances that would accelerate rot and decay, iron fittings that had been deliberately weakened through improper metallurgy, sailcloth that was woven with fibers that would part under stress, construction materials that were designed to fail during the most critical moments of naval combat, quality control that was ensuring American naval defeat while providing British forces with seaworthy vessels that would give them decisive advantages in battle. The sailors realized they weren't investigating British shipbuilding operations. They were witnessing American commercial activities that were using the War of 1812 as an opportunity to generate profits by sabotaging American naval effectiveness, while simultaneously supplying British forces with superior warships, activities that were extending the war, increasing American naval casualties, and serving British maritime interests rather than American independence. At 13:56 hours, shipyard security personnel discovered the American naval observation positions. Security personnel who weren't British naval officers or Royal Marines were American private guards employed by American shipbuilding companies who had orders to eliminate anyone who approached the facility without proper commercial authorization, who had been told that any naval personnel in the area were British infiltrators attempting to steal American maritime trade secrets, who had been given permission to use lethal force against American sailors to protect American commercial activities that couldn't be acknowledged without destroying American shipbuilding credibility. The firefight began with musket fire from positions that had been prepared specifically to eliminate naval reconnaissance. American naval pistols operated by personnel who had been trained to counter American naval boarding tactics. Personnel who knew exactly how American sailors operated and exactly how to neutralize their capabilities. Personnel who were killing American naval forces to protect American business interests that were generating American profits while sabotaging American maritime independence. O'Malley ordered his team to take cover while returning fire with naval cutlasses and pistols that misfired after every second shot, weapons that had been manufactured by the same contractors who were supplying the shipyard, weapons that had been deliberately sabotaged to fail during combat, fighting American guards who were using superior arms to eliminate American sailors who had discovered American activities that were officially denied. Silva used his knowledge of Portuguese naval warfare to outflank security positions that had been designed to counter British forces, not American sailors who understood Iberian maritime combat techniques. Eliminated several guards who were carrying identification that proved they were American citizens employed by American shipbuilding companies that held American government contracts for producing naval vessels. Prescott used his seamanship training to eliminate shipyard personnel who were attempting to signal for reinforcements that would overwhelm the reconnaissance team. Personnel who were using American maritime communication systems to contact American shipbuilding executives who would respond with additional guards, and possibly American naval forces who would be told they were eliminating British infiltrators rather than American sailors who had discovered American maritime crimes. Jefferson used his naval architecture expertise to destroy shipbuilding equipment that was being used to construct defective vessels for American naval forces, not to eliminate British naval capabilities, but to prevent American sabotage of American naval effectiveness. Destruction that eliminated construction machinery, destroyed quality control records, and killed witnesses who could have testified about activities that were funded by American taxpayers, but served British interests rather than American maritime independence. Washington used his documentation skills to gather evidence of American naval sabotage, while using his access to destroy commercial records that documented systematic betrayal of American maritime interests. Evidence gathering that preserved proof of American shipbuilding crimes while preventing American companies from completing contracts that would have been profitable but would have ensured American naval defeat through systematic vessel failures. Martinez used his communication expertise to intercept and disrupt shipyard signal traffic that was attempting to coordinate the elimination of American sailors who had become inconvenient witnesses to American commercial activities. Communications that proved American shipbuilding executives knew about the sabotage operation, approved of the construction practices, and authorized the elimination of American naval personnel who discovered what was being conducted in America's name. Brown used his naval expertise to analyze and document systematic sabotage while destroying construction samples that would have been used to continue building defective vessels for American naval forces. Analysis that proved American shipbuilders were deliberately weakening American naval effectiveness while simultaneously providing British forces with superior vessels that would ensure American maritime defeat. The sailors extracted evidence of American naval sabotage while fighting their way out of the shipyard against American security guards who had superior weapons and better defensive positions. Evidence that proved American shipbuilders were sabotaging American naval effectiveness while simultaneously supplying British forces with superior warships. Evidence that documented the use of American naval contracts to fund activities that served British maritime interests rather than American independence. But extraction required crossing harbor waters that were controlled by American naval forces, who had been told they were searching for British infiltrators. Forces that had orders to eliminate the reconnaissance team, to prevent exposure of activities that could embarrass American shipbuilding leadership and destroy American public support for naval warfare. Forces that were willing to kill American sailors to protect American business executives who had never faced enemy fire or risked their lives for anything except commercial advantage. The pursuit began when American naval artillery began shelling coordinates that were transmitted by shipyard personnel who survived the sailor assault. Naval bombardment that was officially attributed to counter-battery fire against British positions, but was actually designed to eliminate American personnel who possessed evidence of American commercial crimes. Bombardment conducted by American naval officers who believed they were supporting American sailor operations, but were actually participating in the elimination of American witnesses to American shipbuilding activities. O'Malley led his team through harbor waters that had been charted by American naval surveyors, who provided the information to American forces that were pursuing American sailors. Charts that showed every possible escape route, every potential hiding place, every source of fresh water and shelter in the Chesapeake Bay region. Charts that gave pursuing forces decisive advantages against sailors who were trying to reach friendly vessels while carrying evidence that could expose American shipbuilding crimes. Silva used his language skills to communicate with Portuguese sailors who were serving on American naval vessels, convincing them that American sailors were carrying information that could expose American activities that violated the principles they had enlisted to defend. Information that Portuguese-American naval personnel could use to embarrass American leadership that was tolerating shipbuilding activities that were betraying the maritime independence cause they had joined America to support. Prescott maintained communication with naval headquarters, providing false information about their location and status to prevent American forces from intercepting evidence of American naval sabotage. Communication that required deceiving American naval commanders who were participating in the elimination operation without understanding what they were eliminating. Communication that served American maritime independence by opposing American shipbuilders who were betraying American naval interests. Jefferson used his naval architecture skills to create obstacles that delayed American forces pursuing the reconnaissance team, obstacles that served American maritime independence by opposing American commercial interests that were serving British maritime interests, obstacles that protected American sailors from American forces who had been ordered to kill American sailors to protect American shipbuilders who were ensuring American naval defeat through systematic vessel sabotage. Washington used his documentation expertise to preserve evidence while treating wounded civilians who were caught in crossfire between American sailors and American forces pursuing them. Documentation that served historical truth while complicating naval operations. Evidence preservation that demonstrated American principles while exposing American shipbuilding crimes committed by Americans who claimed to be serving American maritime independence. Martinez used his maritime commerce analysis skills to intercept American communications about the pursuit operation, learning that American forces had been told they were chasing British agents who possessed classified information about American naval capabilities, forces that didn't know they were pursuing American sailors, forces that had been lied to by American officials who were using American naval personnel to eliminate American evidence of American shipbuilding crimes. Brown helped preserve naval samples while evacuating American shipyard workers who had witnessed the systematic sabotage and possessed first-hand knowledge of American shipbuilding betrayal. Preservation that provided evidence while complicating escape operations. Evidence that demonstrated the scope of shipbuilding crimes while endangering American personnel who were trying to expose those crimes. The chase continued for 4 days across Chesapeake Bay waters, where American and British naval forces were preparing for the Battle of Baltimore. Waters where American sailors were being pursued by American forces, while British fleets were advancing toward American ports. Maritime battlefield, where the evidence they carried could change the outcome of the war by exposing the American shipbuilding conspiracy that was ensuring British naval victory through systematic sabotage of American naval effectiveness. The shipbuilding facility was destroyed. The evidence was buried. The witnesses were eliminated. But the system that created the facility, buried the evidence, and eliminated the witnesses continues to operate, continues to use American naval resources to conduct activities that serve British interests through American shipbuilding betrayal, continues to sacrifice American sailors to protect American commercial activities that violate American maritime independence, continues to betray American naval principles while claiming to serve them through systematic sabotage disguised as patriotic shipbuilding. The War of 1812 became the template for commercial activities that had nothing to do with American maritime independence and everything to do with shipbuilding profiteering. Naval independence that was sabotaged to create commercial opportunities for American shipbuilders who sold vessels to both sides while ensuring that American naval forces received defective ships. Maritime victory that was prevented to maximize profits from naval construction contracts that served British interests rather than American objectives. Naval freedom that was betrayed because achieving maritime independence would end the business relationships that made the naval war profitable for shipbuilders who had never served aboard warships or faced British cannon fire. And somewhere in the archives of maritime historical societies that were founded by families whose wealth was built on War of 1812, naval profiteering, evidence continues to exist that could expose the American shipbuilding conspiracy that prolonged America's Second War for Independence. Evidence that proves the War of 1812 was extended by American shipbuilders who sabotaged American naval effectiveness while supplying British forces with superior warships. Evidence that documents the conversion of American naval patriotism into commercial profit margins. Evidence that reveals the transformation of the struggle for American maritime independence into opportunities for American shipbuilding enrichment through systematic betrayal of the naval cause they claimed to support.